pieces of art on top of it.
They're works of art for the most part.
So let's try some questions and answers type stuff, just off the cuff here, unscripted, of course.
Yeah.
So, if you were dropped off on planet Earth, unknown point, and total question mark on where you're going to land, what you're going to have to face, which one of these cartridges and in which weapon would you maybe select? And modern Earth, what would you pick? You got to survive.
Probably the tried and true 375 Holland and Holland Magnum. This has the enviable reputation, and everybody marvels at it, that it comes with 3 bullet weights, and you can sight it if you're one, and the other 2 will shoot to the same point of impact. That just doesn't normally happen with the rifle. It's plenty powerful for elephant, anything on this planet, and yet it's flat shooting enough for the longer range shots at big antelope or what have you. It's little overkill for deer and that sort of thing, but better to have a little overkill than underkill. So if you were restricted to one, that would probably be a very good choice.
So the 375 is a pretty good choice for all-around cartridge.
Really good, yeah. Now we have several other 375s here. There's the Ackley Improved,
sure,
which is the blown-out case, holds more powder, more speed. The 375 Weatherby, which is just again a faster version, as you can see by the less taper to the body than the 375 H&H. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the big 378 Weatherby, where they went all out. You might think at first glimpse that, well, those are maybe superior than if it's all of the 375, but more. But again, now you're getting into pressing that velocity a bit. They're great for long range. They're flatter shooting, but they're more subject to some little idiosyncrasies.
So it's a trade-off, yeah?
Yeah, there's a trade-off.
Okay, so next question. You're dropped off in Jurassic Park, Part 1, okay? Obviously you're going to go for something with a little more horsepower, but what were you thinking here?
Well, I think you wouldn't go very far wrong with the 600 Nitro Express. Now, this rifle was built and used by professional hunters in Africa, and most of them will tell you that it's their emergency go-to rifle. They would use something smaller for an elephant, but once they got in a sticky situation where an elephant was wounded or a Cape buffalo and likely to charge as they're following them up, they'd switch to the 600 Nitro. The idea being that this will stop anything in its tracks. It was observed by one professional hunter in Africa that a shot in an elephant's head that missed the brain with a 600 Nitro would still knock him out for 20 minutes. Where it didn't hit nothing but bone.
Just hit the skull, and it was enough shock to knock him silly,
knock him unconscious. And they said no other big bore rifle will do that.
Just a raw energy type deal.
Hard enough, right?
Yeah, it's good energy transfer.
900 grain bullet, and you're going at I forget now, 2400 or something in that neighborhood.
900 grain bullet.
Yeah.
That's pretty stout.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it would actually handle most dinosaurs probably pretty well too.
Yeah. I think the guy in that second Jurassic Park movie used something maybe like this. A 577 or maybe a 600. I don't remember what he used.
I believe wasn't that a 700 Nitro Express?
It could have been. I don't know. It's hard to tell sometimes. Or no, was it a necked cartridge maybe? Did he have like a 577 Tyrannosaur maybe or something? That would be appropriate, obviously. I don't remember what the heck it was. I'll have to watch it again.
There are a few bigger ones. Like they come out recently with the 700 Nitro Express. And that was simply almost a gimmick, you might say, to say that now we make the most powerful rifle in the world.
Right, yeah. That's always the name of the game, isn't it?
But, a box of shells for that it costs you about as much as a new car.
Wow.
They're outrageously expensive, the rifles and the ammunition. And the kick, could break bones. It's not pleasant to shoot. It's so overly powerful.
Now, what would the advantage, do you think, if... I know you have a 50 BMG laying around someplace, but would you take the 600 over the 50 BMG, you think, for dinosaurs?
I don't know. Maybe because of this bullet is designed for penetration once it hits something. It just a steady, straight line. I know the BMG would do that too. But it would probably work, but all of a sudden...
Handiness of the weapon system,
handiness of the weapon, you're to carry around them, and in a quick emergency situation, handle a rifle that shoots a 50 BMG, you know,
Yeah.
those guns are awfully big, what, 20, 30 pounds? or
Not
something?
going to offhand it very
Right.
easily.
I mean, a typical rifle for a 600 Nitro Express is no little lily either. You know, they're typically 16 pounds or so, but it's a lot lighter than a 50 BMG. You can also, you know, obviously carry more ammo without weighing you down too much.
So what are these tiny little cartridges over here? So you got all these big ones. Now some of these are just like really small.
Well, this is, and I forget, I haven't even looked at my collection for so long, I'm almost forgetting what some of these are. I think that's a Calibri. That was made for indoor target shooting.
Like a
with
3 millimeter,
pistols.
2.7 millimeter
Yeah,
caliber?
something like that. The next to it is the oldest cartridge in the United States, probably in the world. And that's the 22 BB cap. It originally started out just using a primer and putting a BB in it of 22 caliber. And then they put a little bit of powder, whatever they could get in there too, to give it a little more oomph. And they thought that worked pretty neat, but they should have a little better bullet rather than the round BB, so they made the CB cap for conical bullet in originally a cap. And graduated to the 22 short, which is the oldest cartridge in the world, still being made and still in production. And I think this goes back to about 1857, somewhere in there. It's an old timer and still in use. Of course, quite overshadowed by 22 long rifles nowadays. You know, and there's the 22 long, we kind of used a bit.
That's been around for a long time too, right?
That's almost as long, yeah. But the long rifle came out some years after, not too much longer. That's quite old too. This one here is a British Rook cartridge. Rook being a British term for, I believe, like something like our crows here.
That's a little center fire on that one, isn't it?
And they made a whole series of these. They're really small center fire for pest control, basically rats and crows, and that type of thing.
So which one of these is your most prized cartridge?
Well, that's hard to say. It might be the one I can't find right now. It's a 2 millimeter Colibri, and it's so small that you'd lose it in a display like this. So it's in one of these little coin display cards with the cellophane on both sides, and it's sandwiched in there, so it won't fall in the cracks, you know. But that is ridiculously tiny. But it actually was a indoor target shooting. 1880s and 90s gallery shooting, they called it. It was the vogue for wealthy people, and the ladies even, you know, would in Victorian times would get out and they made little tiny rifles and pistols, and they did indoor target shooting. That's why they were so tiny, because they were shot at short distances and indoors. Didn't want too much penetration or noise. Or the other end of the spectrum, for just its sheer rareness, the old 7150 Winchester. I say it's a
That's
really unique piece of history. Yeah.
Yep. I think my favorite be this guy here.
Yeah.
475 number 2 Jeffrey. Is that what that is?
And that one of the longest cartridges ever built. That 3.5 inch. The empty case is 3.5 inches long. Some of these other big ones you see are 3 inch. The Nitro Express, the 370, or 470 rather, but the 475, as you can see.
Yeah, it's just a beast, you know. It's impressive cartridge.
They made the 450 number 2 Nitro Express and the 475 number 2 Jeffrey Nitro Express. And those two are the two longest cartridges I'm aware of.
You have a 505 Gibbs?
No.
Yeah, that's a pretty massive one too, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot. And this isn't half of what I should have.
Yeah, that's only a fraction of what exists, probably.
Oh, right, yeah.
But that's the fun thing about this cartridge collecting is, you know, if you start off with a small collection, you can disguise the limit. Really, there's all kinds of stuff.
And you can find them anywhere. I kind of got started collecting. My dad had accumulated just here and there, a couple dozen cartridges that he sometimes just found or someone gave him one, kind of an oddity, and so he just kind of kept them in a coffee can someplace. And I ended up with them because I always was fascinated. I'd ask him about it. And So I got into cartridge collecting. Then, of course, you get the cartridges of the world. And from there, I made copies of some of the pages. And this is how you can identify. You have a cartridge, and there's sheets in there that'll show you the first letter designation tells you the type of cartridge, whether it's rimmed or rimless, or rebated rim, or straight walled case, or necked case. And then the dimensions: the bullet diameter, shoulder diameter, neck diameter, rim diameter, and so you can identify them. A good case in point is I had for quite a while a 50 Remington Navy, which was built for a Remington rolling block pistol for the Navy back in the 19th century. And
Well, that's a rimfire, huh?
it's a rimfire, right?
It's a big rimfire, like a 22 shell. Explain rimfire to those folks.
Rimfire,
Some of them may
the
not
priming
know.
compound is just packed into the rim. The rim is hollow. Like
So you
the rest
don't
of the
have a
case.
separate primer that you can
Right.
decap and take out.
And they're a little more awkward to reload, but they could be reloaded, and the bigger ones were. You clean the case out, and they just a priming compound, which is something like the head of a match, in a paste form. They just spread it in there and let it dry, and then when it struck a blow anywhere along the rim here, a sharp blow, it'll detonate the priming compound and fire the gun.
They had some pretty decent sized rimfire cartridges back in the day, yeah.
You bet. That's a 50 caliber Navy. Then I come across another one, and at first I kind of thought maybe that's a Navy. I didn't have the other one, but I thought it looks a little long. So just recently here, I had to look it up and took the measurements off of it and discovered it's a 50-60 Peabody. Now there were, especially in the 19th century, there were so many different gun companies. The Peabody, the Maynard. Now that's I don't even have it in my collection, but the Maynards you can spot at a distance because the rims on them were huge. They stuck way up. So, like I say, it's an interesting history and a story behind each and every one. And
They have some pinfires, you said, right?
right.
Now, is this like, whose idea was this?
Almost all the ones that I know of come from France, so I'm guessing they maybe originated there.
So your primer is that little pin. You got to orient that cartridge perfectly in the
Right.
rifle then, I presume?
When you feed it into the chamber, you see there's no rim on the cartridge either. When you put it into the chamber, there is a notch cut in above the chamber for the pin to go into. So when it goes in, as the chamber turns, these pins are sticking out. And when this one indexes under the hammer strikes the pin, that goes on and strikes a really awkward way of going about the ignition system. But there are a lot
Yeah,
of...
think outside the box. Well, when they're developing cartridges in the early days, who knows what would have worked better, you know?
And talking of rimfires, it's a 38 long rimfire again.
357 maximum there, that long
Right,
guy.
that's the 350 maximum, you bet. And this was a lot of people not familiar with the cartridge probably, but they always picture the riverboat gambler with his little double-barreled Derringer. And for the most part, they shot this, a 41 rimfire. 41 caliber. And pretty potent for close-range self-defense there.
Well, that's an incredibly appealing collection there.
Yeah.
Something that pretty much anyone could really get into.
Each and every one has its own story. Even like here, here's the 22 calibers rifle cartridges. But I started out with, this is a 30-06 case, but with the accelerator, which is a 22 caliber bullet in a plastic sabot.
Hey, you pronounced that correctly.
Yeah.
He's a wise one. Sabot, that means shoe?
Right, French for shoe. And interesting, some of these old bullets with a really elongated bullet they were military. This is a Portuguese military round, 860 rimmed Gettys. When Karamojo Bell, the famous elephant hunter in Africa at the turn of the century, went over and shot his something like 5,000 or 10,000 elephants, some ridiculous amount. Most of those were shot with a 7mm Mauser and a 303 British. And people of the day criticized him for it. Well, he tried.
Famous ivory hunter shot full-grown bull elephants.
That's right.
Huh.
But he discovered that he tried some of the big boards first, and he didn't like the kick, obviously. But he also discovered some erratic bullet performance we're talking about. And but when originally started, he only had of course, they used the British designation, but it was a 7mm Mauser with the long military bullets of the day. And he found really reliable performance because being so very long, the sectional density is great. They penetrate very well because they have an awful lot of weight for a small frontal area. And they seem to fly quite stable. And once they hit strike, they continue to bore on. And if you get a full metal jacket such as this, it doesn't expand hardly at all. Sometimes they would get bent or deformed. You hit a big bone on an elephant, but
so if you place it correctly, you'll get all the penetration you need.
right. So they penetrate enough, but you still you didn't have much margin for error. They had to be well placed shots. But he was head shooting elements basically, and that's a lot of bone to penetrate. And he could even shoot from a rear quartering angle, which one of the few people ever mastered that shot. But he did it all with these small calibers. But the reason it worked for him, besides his really accurate shooting, was these very long bullets for their caliber. Which at the time, like I say, most of the military cartridges looked kind of like that when the first smoke was come out, because they still couldn't get past the idea of, boy, that's an awful lot of, an awfully small case for such a big bullet. Here you see that a little bit. Here's an old 7mm Mauser, like Bell shot with. Now this one's a soft point, but it's an old loaded one with quite a long bullet.
So as we can see, this hobby is a pretty good conversation starter, and it's something that a guy can get into, and I mean, you could visit for hours about this kind of deal, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it gives me countless hours of enjoyment just kind of searching through, and especially if you discover an oddball, somebody just find them in the dirt someplace, or somebody has some old thing later and doesn't even know what it is and just gives it to you as an oddity. Well, then you gotta sometimes there are no head stamps, or they're so obliterated you can't really read them, and this is where this comes in. Because like I say, just by you'll need a micrometer,
external
caliper,
specifications, yep.
and measure the dimensions of it, compare it to the chart. You start with the caliber, the cartridge, or the case length, and just with about 3 measurements, usually you can narrow it down to, well, it's got to be that one.
Well, thank you so much, Kurt, for showing us your prized collection here. That's pretty cool.
Oh, always fun to share it.